Hello there guys, and welcome to another one of my reviews. Today we are driving the Porsche 911 Targa 4S. And you might be wondering, rightfully so if you ask me, what the hell is wrong with me? Why am I filming from this angle? Don't I know that reviews are supposed to be filmed from the front of the car? Well, I decided to film it this way because I think this is the best looking part of the car. I mean, we all know 911s all look the same up front. They have the same front end, but when it comes to the rear end, that's where you'll find the biggest difference the Targa 4S comes with. So that's the moving roof, that's the retractable roof, and this metal protection system. The history of the Targa 4S, or the Targa as a whole, begins back in the 1960s. Back then, Porsche was developing the 911, initially called 901, but because Peugeot already had the trademark for all cars that would be named with a zero in the middle, Porsche had to adapt and use the 911 name. When they started developing the 911, they also had a convertible in mind. The problem was the US market had some very restrictive laws back then regarding the safety of convertible cars, and they demanded that all convertible cars have a fixed protection pillar so that in case you flip over, you don't get crushed by your own car. Back then, we didn't have all the pyrotechnic devices modern convertibles have that simply pop up some steel pillars from the back of your headrests and protect you in case something goes wrong. So Porsche had to adapt. Therefore, they created both a convertible, a regular convertible, and a Targa version. Now, the name Targa comes from a famous rally held in Sicily back in the 1950s, the Targa Florio. The Targa Florio was the place where Porsche was quite successful in motorsport back in the 1950s, and they got inspired by this event. That's why they came up with the Targa name. The Targa name also means license plate in Italian, but I don't think that has anything to do with the car. Initially, they wanted to call it the 911 Flori, but someone in the upper management came up with the idea, just call it Targa, and this is what we have today. Now, you should know that Targa models, Targa body styles varied along the years. So the initial Targa had the same layout, only that it didn't have a complete glass panel in the back. They had a textile and plastic cover behind the resistance pillar. Over years, we had about 3 generations with a different layout. Even though they were called Targa, they didn't have this kind of roof. Instead, what they had was a fixed roof, and right in the middle, a very big piece of glass going from the windshield all the way to the back that was basically split down the middle, and the portion right above the occupants would retract towards the back. Think of it like a huge sunroof that would open up. You still get the experience, you still get the open top experience in that car, but it's not really a Targa if you ask me. This body style, this mechanism came back with the 991 generation, the previous generation, not this one. This is the 992. This is the current Targa generation, and it looks absolutely beautiful. Up front, as I said already, you won't notice lots of differences compared to any other 911. It looks just like any other 911. Round headlights, 4 LEDs in them to tell you that this is the 992 generation, and a huge bumper with huge air intakes to cool off the engine. Now, the engine is in the back, but it does have intercoolers up front which have a long transfer line in order to cool the beast under the rear hood, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, it looks very good. It returned to the classic design. And what I want to point out at the back, because the Targa does look roughly the same as any other 911 around here in the bumper area, is this grille. This grille on the 992 generation 911 has a very special meaning. You have 9 vertical slats on both sides of the main stop sign, the main stop light in the middle. So basically you have 992, which is the current generation, or 911 if you look at these two lights as an 11. Other than that, what more can I say? This car looks absolutely magnificent. Wide hips, just as we got used to lately, because the current generation has wide hips on all its 911 models, and it's absolutely brilliant. Inside the cabin we have the same story. The 911 Targa looks exactly the same as it does on, well, just about any other 911 out there, except for the roof part, because if you get the convertible, you won't have this fixed pillar over here. You'll have a more open top experience. So what about the design? Well, it's typical 911 992 generation. All those huge that huge number of buttons is gone now. We have some touch sensitive areas over here to help you adjust certain functions of the car. We also have a couple of buttons here, including the one for the roof. It's more along the lines of a gear selector, and up in front of it 3 smaller ones for adjusting the climate control, the temperature, the ventilation, and the temperature for the passenger. What I do like about this interior is that we have 5 shortcuts over here, 5 buttons that allow you to control certain aspects of the car without having to go into the rather scruffy and complicated in some areas menu. The infotainment system, it works really well. It's really easy to use. It has Google Maps, navigation and everything, so it works really good. But when you want to change just certain aspects of the car, having a button like this is beautiful. So we have a button for the lift kit. Basically this car has a feature that allows it to raise the front end whenever you reach a steep incline or maybe a bumper or something like that. This is a sports car after all, so it's going to be very, very low. This is very useful. Then we have a button to open the exhaust flaps in the back and make the car louder or quieter depending on the situation. Next to it we have the button for the traction control system and the button for the suspension setup. You can make it softer or harsher depending on what you want. And then we have the drive mode button right here on the steering wheel. The steering wheel is classic Porsche business, very well done, nice leather all around it, and it feels great to the touch. Has the perfect size, it's not too thin, it's not too thick, just right. And over here we have the drive button, which allows you to switch between normal, wet, sport and sport plus mode, and individual mode, which you can configure. And then if you press down the middle of this button, you have boost mode, which means the car enters its sportiest settings for the engine, for example, and you have instant boost. This lasts for up to 20 seconds and you have impeccable throttle response in it, but I'll talk about that later on. The instrument cluster is classical 911 992 generation stuff. We have the analog rev counter right in the middle and some digital gauges to the left and to the right. Looks brilliant, works brilliant, nothing to complain about here. What you can complain about is practicality, because there isn't much of it, but you know, it's a convertible 911, you can't expect that much. You have a cup holder here and one that's retractable over here. No room in the back for humans. I mean, there are seats in the back, but they're not basically usable. You even have like safety belts, you know, typical 911. You do have anchor isofix points for child seats if you want to try that. I mean, if you roll this, the passenger side seat up front enough, you could probably squeeze a baby seat in the back. So that's about it for the interior.